Today we are going to talk about... Well, I played the entire Dead Island series as of 7/27/25. And starting with the first game here, I'm going to just do a quick dirty review. The sights are gorgeous. By the way, this is the definitive version, the HD remake thing. It's pretty gorgeous. I did find out, like, almost midway through Riptide that the mysterious setting that made it pretty hard to see. Well, it's hard to explain. But bloom, it makes light bloom. And this being originally for Xbox, if you don't turn off bloom on modern rigs, it just makes it look a bit more blurry.
Jesus Christ, are you alright? I'm Will. I've been watching.
And it's very noticeable in bright, sunny areas.
Be careful out there.
But yeah, pretty good game. Gameplay gets a little stagnant midway through. Gameplay loop is pretty much just story, kill zombies, story, kill zombies, usually doing story missions, which are either go here or fetch this and come back quests. There is a few quests where you take people to places. I forget the name of them. Essentially, they're the protect and follow quests. And everyone hates those quests, but here's the thing. I haven't had any problem at all. Well, with this game in particular, aside from the bloom, it gets really grating the longer you play. And I just don't know how Dead Island 2 did not pull the grit feel of Dead Island 1 and Riptide.
I'm impressed.
You know, if you just slowly go through
I'm sorry, where are my manners?
this game
You'd better talk to Dr. West.
in
He's in
any
charge
area
here.
that has
You have to go
zombies
through the
in it,
locker rooms. The scientists here have started
you'll
building
understand, you know,
barricades.
the
Go.
totality of
see for
the
yourself.
atmosphere, you know, the aura it gives off. Especially in the sound design, it really feels like it should be a horror game. And I really love that little design quirk. Especially in the music. You know, usually when the music starts playing, it's probably because they're about to shove zombies down your throat. So most of the time in this game and the sequel, I got really antsy when the music just turns on and there's nothing. But I kind of feel like that's part of the design. But yeah, first game, not going to go too deep in the story. Really, mostly because there's a lot of channels that do it. I know that I've already covered the story of this game and general reviews, but just the ambiance and theme, they nailed it. Gameplay, again, it's old, clunky, and stagnant compared to other titles. It also doesn't help that each character has its own play style that locks them into certain methods of fighting. For example, when I played through this game, the first game in Riptide, I played Sam B both times. And he is the slow, meaty, heavy-hitting tank. Well, semi-heavy-hitting tank. You know, he's more so take a lot of damage, deal out crippling blows for other characters to help him. A lot of this game is balanced around multiplayer. And that really translates pretty hard in later areas in the game. And certain enemy types. Each character has its bang, based off of its weapon resistances. For example, slobbers, or the bloated zombies, they actually they're resilient to blunt damage. And they also have caustic, they deal caustic damage, which is essentially, it's the basic form of an acid. You know, the more basic you get, the more active and angry the chemical is. Same thing with acid, but basic is referred to as caustic when acid is acidic. But at any rate, just the basic outline of the story, quick and dirty. If you want more detailed, someone else already has a video for it. I forget his name off the top of my head, but if you type in Dead Island story, it comes up as number 1, 2, or 3. But essentially, the basic outline for Riptide, Dead Island 1 is they were playing or doing some biological testing on this new virus in one of the research stations. Not on this island, however, because it ties into Riptide. There's a lot of random itty-bitty retcons here and there, but that also exists all the way up to Dead Island 2. Also, but we'll just do the quick dirty for the first game here. Essentially, Act 1 is you helping these survivors because you are the chosen one who is immune to the zombie bite. Or, if you're playing with friends, you 4 are the chosen ones who are immune to the zombie bite. But at first, just explain a quick little explanation to the backstory of the development of this game. It was pretty rocky and choppy, and when they were developing it, they at first didn't know exactly where to take the story, but they at one point they already had all the lines recorded for Act 1, and like midway through Act 2 they realize, oh yeah, we forgot, the end game is getting off this island to help make a cure. Why in the fuck are we helping these people? But yeah, it's actually pretty funny that the game has a midlife crisis midway through. But that's probably one of the funniest bits of this entire game. But essentially, the basic story is you play as one of 3 employees. I'll explain this in a bit. Yes, there's supposed to be 4, but one of them actually pops in later in the story. But essentially, you play as one of 3 people who work at this hotel. One of which turns out to actually be an undercover spy, for China. That actually comes a bit more in one of the side games, which I don't recommend you even entertaining. Unless you really like the series and just want more content. But it was one of the tied over titles they shout out underneath the name of the IP when number 2 was in development hell. But at any rate, I didn't play that one. And I'll explain that a little bit later. So, essentially, the hotel gets zombies in it. You need to make a quick escape. And you pretty much get saved by a lifeguard after you black out from numerous zombie bites. And he takes you to a lifeguard shack he managed to protect. When you wake up the second time in this game, you have to go save the lifeguard. Also, the longer you take, the more people bitch at you to go do it. So, essentially, once you save him and secure a safe haven for all of the other survivors, you start on the quest to go further inland on this island resort. And helping survivors as you go. But again, once you hit the city, start helping those people, the game literally has a midlife crisis. Like, oh wait a minute, we're supposed to be doing that instead. Why the fuck did we start helping these people again? But yeah, once you make your way there, you help scientists in a research facility track down tribes people who they think are ground zero of this virus. Spoiler alert, sorta. But essentially, in the original game, they originally tied this to the Papua New Guinea virus, or what its real name is, after a lot of scrutiny, is SARS, which is essentially a prion, which occurs when, similar to mad cow disease, really. It's pretty much mad cow's disease. But essentially, this being a prion-based thing, all the main characters you play as are immune, and they all have O negative, you know, the universal blood type, that one. And this becomes a little bit more important later into the series here. Once you get to... once you're done there, collect a few of the tribe's people for scientific experiments. You get pulled to the prison with
Let's see what we got here.
the antidote. You go to the prison, and you need to do a few fetch quests here and there before you get to the... supposed to get on the helicopter and escape with the only cure to the virus. But you see, the problem with this entire thing is, secretly behind the screens, I did not play this DLC, but the prison warden / general guy, he was originally stationed on the island, and he, with the help of a terrorist, a cyber terrorist, in this prison that so happen is literally a top skip away from the island and its itty bitty chain. By the way, it's impossible to leave the prison due to game reasons. It's a one-way trip. And to be honest, you probably want it to be a one-way trip, considering that literally everyone in this prison is some form of natural terrorist, which got put there as a form of super banishment. But yeah, that guy alters the entire course of the team of immune people to bring the cure to the prison so he could use it on his wife who got bitten day one. But you see, the problem with this whole entire idea, it does not work. The cure, before he can dispense his wife the cure, shenanigans happens and he ends up getting bit by his wife instead, and has to use the single dose cure on himself, and it turns out to be a good thing because he horribly mutates into a semi-unkillable monstrosity which you and your other 4 friends have to kill. Now, I mentioned that this isn't built to be truly single player. Originally it was supposed to be drop in and out co-op, because of how they designed the characters. Each one excels in a certain thing that benefits, they're a piece of a team. You can't, there is no Rambo character in this game, is what I'm saying. It's supposed to be at least a team of 2. You can play it single player, but after a while it kind of gets like pulling teeth, you see. Considering that for my playthrough, I could only use blunt weapons if I wanted to get the RPG stat boost from Sam B's skill tree. Also, Sam B's tankiness got nerfed in Riptide, as a little quick spoiler. But he's really good if you want to do single player push strat, which is essentially you just try to brute force your way through the game without spending a dime on healing kits. I only used healing kits off of zombies I kill in this playthrough, partly because I spent all that money in getting better kill sticks to compensate the fact I didn't have friends. Now, I also attempted to 100% this game, but I missed the secret set of side quests in Act 3. Or was that in Riptide? They both have jungle areas. Sorry. The two games kind of blend in some places. So, characters get on the helicopter and get on the military ship with the lab rat tribal lady. Now, here's a little kicker here. The ship gets in one of the transgress, and trying to take the main characters as prisoner, including the tribal lady. The tribal lady bites one of the people. Now, here's the thing. She survived the cannibal ritual. Was one of the only people to survive that ritual. that turned pretty much every other tribal.
Back the fuck off!
Now, in real life, SARS is more like a chronic wasting disease. Essentially, once you participate in ritualistic cannibalism, you know, these people kind of believe that if the vessel was left to rot, so would the soul tied to it. So in order to keep the soul of the person alive, well, obviously they would take a piece of them into themselves through ritualistic cannibalism. Essentially, everyone would take a piece of that person, eat them, and a piece of them would always live on within them. And then when they eventually kick the bucket and they get eating, the people they eaten are also now being carried as a part of those people too. So it's one of those multi-generation soul bank things. Kind of makes sense when you look at it in the spiritual aspect, but SARS. Pretty much what a prion is, it's a piece of misfolded DNA. The most common way a prion can be created, matter of fact, they're one of the only diseases that have to be artificially made. They don't outright exist. Essentially, a prion is a misfolded DNA helix from nervous tissue. And due to its nature, it has to be let into the cell to essentially turn it into a zip bomb, where it explodes into more prions after a few hours. But essentially the cell looks at it, doesn't know what it is. Since it's a DNA helix, in order for the cell to read what it is, it has to pull it in, complete the DNA helix since it's only a half helix. Essentially, it fixes the helix to then read it to understand what it is. But the moment they do, the DNA helix breaks apart, and now there's two halves. This repeats until zip bombed. It just blows up in confetti of prions. And then more cells pick it up, and what the fuck is this? Cycle continues. Until the patient gets into a coma, dies, and is then ritualistically cannibalized. You see where this is going. But yeah, prions are one of the only diseases that have to be artificially made in some aspect. Usually through accidental cannibalism. That's what mad cow disease was. They used to grind up the cows that died of natural causes and mix them into the cow feed. But, bones and all. Then the cow would get a prion, but this is one of the only prions in the history of prions that actually managed to jump species. Now, I bring this up now partly because that tribal lady was a carrier. But you see, as revealed in the sequel game, these two first outbreaks were caused at that research facility in Dead Island 1. This is going to come full circle here back to Riptide, but essentially they were experimenting with the autophage at the same facility. But one of the samples of the CRISPR virus thing that they were using to fuck around with autophage, which I'll explain when we get to number 2, after Riptide. The virus they were working on in there attached itself to this prion and became transmittable as it assimilated that prion, creating a false autophage event, cataclysm event. Remember, I said false, incomplete. So essentially, in Dead Island Riptide, gameplay-wise, it's the same as the first game, with a few added quirks. Now, a little bit of the developmental history of this game. Originally, they didn't want to end Dead Island 1 in the prison. That was actually a last-minute cobbled-together level because they needed to end the game because they ran out of time to keep making it. It's also one of the other reasons why it had a midlife crisis worked into the story plot of the game. It's because the development team also had a midlife crisis in development when it came to making the game. I kind of find this a little humorous because there's a little bit of irony there. But essentially in Dead Island Riptide, since it was originally supposed to be a DLC for the first game, it uses the same engine. Essentially, they originally wanted to have Riptide as, at first, a part of the original game, but then they had to settle with DLC after they hit the deadline for Dead Island 1. But when they were working with the engine, they wanted to take a bit more of a southern bayou type area to have the game. And in order to actually truly convey that, they had to add boats. But you see, Dead Island 1 had only car physics. Now they have to add traversable water and boats into the engine, which eventually became so taxing that it couldn't be a DLC because they needed to practically rework the physics engine to handle boats. So that's why Riptide was a half-sequel release. One of the main reasons. The second reason is, well, since they practically needed to make a completely new game in the same engine, they decided to go ahead and make it a full half-sequel game. In both name, title, and release. So they had to add more to the story. So,
Damn, it's getting old.
gameplay is pretty much the same. The levels, though. This game somehow managed to look grungier in areas than the first game. And this is something I've been meaning to bring up in a video like this, but somehow older games really managed to pull off the dirty grunge factor in the design. For some reason, whenever you have the graphics up all the way in some newer games, it just somehow looks too clean, too uniform. When in older games, dirt is supposed to be a little blurry. Somehow the dirt in this game feels dirtier, for lack of better words, due to its low graphics. So, essentially, Riptide takes us through fictional island again, which is the sister island to the first island in the game. But essentially, that tribal lady who bit one of the soldiers was a carrier of this prion.
What we got here?
This mutated prion. But, at any rate, the ship gets overloaded with zombies. By the way, part of that is theory. They never actually confirmed that she was a carrier or not. And I think she disappears in the story altogether. Just becomes like a random background NPC that says hi to you now and again. If not, she is completely gone. I forget off the top of my head. Some of the later levels in both of these games kind of blur for some reason in my memory. But to be honest, Riptide is literally just the first game with a completely new story. So, essentially, you have to get off the ship onto this new pristine island, which is also zombie hellscape. At first, you think it's because the boat, the military class flight, landing boat full of zombies is to blame. No. Turns out, this island was Island 0. And I'll bring this up. Just how they managed to connect these loose ends in vague bits. In the first game, literally in the opening cutscene of the first game, the title page, we follow a nondescript party member who is none of the original characters that are playable, as he pisses off all of them in some unique way. And in there, for about 2 seconds, a zombie in a swimsuit tackles one of the party guests, and no one notices. That zombie originally was on this island, I were to guess, and came to, I forget the name of the island in the first game, as trying to seek help because shit went really bad on this island with the bayous and shit. Now, the interesting thing is, there are evidence of tribal people on this island, but they're almost gone, really. They're not there in the game, probably because they were probably the first to go. But yeah, so essentially in Riptide, the story becomes you guys are originally trying to escape from the island, and as you do, you slowly uncover more and more of the conspiracy behind the outbreak. You grow to learn that the virus didn't originate from the boat. It originated from this island and spread to the island you were on in the first game. Again, this isn't one-to-one description of the game. Some of it's my own theories, but essentially what happens is, as you go through the acts, you know, you're going deeper inland to try and get to a bigger dock, because a little fishing boat's not going to get you off this fucking place. And apparently a plane, a fighter, vessel wasn't either, a military boat. So essentially, as you go deeper inland, one of the characters that sort of becomes the leader of the people you're helping also escape, who's also a microbiologist and doctor. Sorry. Who's also probably one of the best looking characters in the entire series. But at any rate, she turns out to be the head scientist on this island. Well, second head scientist. Also, what outs her is during Act 2, when you have to go through this underwater cave thing to start Act 2. You know, I forget if it was Act 2 or Act 3. But you have to go through this ancient military fortress, which was used to house chemical weapons from World War II in this universe. Oh, I just pulled this random clip, but this section here is one of the tribal areas I was talking about. They're sort of in the game and not in the game. As you can see, obviously their agronography there, but none of these are tribal zombies. Unless they let white people in. Most of these people look like tourists, though. Well, back to what I was saying. Turns out she was one of the head microbiologists studying this version of the autophage virus. And she was originally part of the Ground Zero. And she got contaminated. And then thus chose to stay behind to attempt to lock down a quarantine on this island for government cover-up, followed by nukes. But again, it turns out zombies in this universe don't drown. And I didn't mention this before, but it seems like they should be able to drown since they breathe. And they actually do have drowning noises, but they don't take drowning damage. It's odd. If you played this game and knocked zombies into the water, and they start drowning, keep in mind it's about shin-deep water. That's the deepest it gets in the first game. And it gets higher in this game. I think I hit in a few spots where it was deep enough to swim. But that's the whole part of that game engine problem I told you about they had. But, yeah, essentially, she stayed on the island and attempted to destroy all of the boats. But the only boat on the island was the boat the original team of scientists were supposed to use to escape, but for some reason is still docked in the science facility, meaning they may have succumbed when they went to go retrieve their families. So, the little plot holes here. But essentially, once you get to the research facility, she reveals everything. Oh, I also forgot, we did have a city thing where you go to a movie theater, but really bumfuck all happens there. Pretty much the entire game is just padding until you get to this point in the game anyway. So I may have skipped it, partly because they also had a similar midlife crisis in the first, like they did in the first game midway through, where the characters go, wait, why in the fuck are we helping these people? We should be trying to get off this island because they're about to blow the fucker up. So, yeah, they kind of have that problem again where they just state their the crisis in writing. But essentially, I didn't bring this up before, but Riptide is actually slightly better balanced for single player than the first game. Don't get me wrong. There are enemies that are highly resistant to some weapon types to kind of let the other characters shine in certain areas if you're playing multiplayer. But Riptide is a bit more lax, I would like to say. Either that or New Game Plus, pulling over the old save file thing, kind of fucks with the game balance thing, but I doubt that considering all the zombies matched my level. Also, they added a sub-mastery system, where the more you use a certain weapon type, the more buffs you get passively for using them, to try and make up for the fact that all the tree nodes in the game are hyper-specifically focused on a single weapon type. Which is one of the downsides of the balancing in the first two games, I'm going to call them. But any rate, she doses herself with a viral accelerant, that doctor lady, and then you have to kill her. I'm going to mention this. I didn't bring this up when I went through the story in the first game. They're essentially bullet sponges. They're supposed to take a long ass time to kill, a lot of resources, and they were sort of better built around multiplayer. You know, 4 people obviously killing the big bad final boss should take a while. It takes one person about 3 times as long, considering in the first game, he also infinitely spawns weaker zombies, and he is just a super roided slugger. You know, the big buff boys that pick you up and throw you around like a ragdoll. He's just essentially just a brick wall you have to literally beat down. You do have access to guns, but infinite ammo if you're in single player, but you're going to go through all of it if you're more than one player. And really, the last dungeon in the first game was a fucking slog. You know, the last area in the game is that prison. That prison is designed to keep people who are crazy enough to declare war against the world and blow people up. Of course, it's going to be really hard to navigate because it's designed to keep those people in, which is the downside to why it fell during the zombie apocalypse. Also, I'm going to mention this real quick. Rammers. They're my least favorite enemy type in this entire game for a handful of reasons, one of which, you cannot strafe sprint in this game. And for whatever reason, I kept trying to do that every time one of those fuckers started to charge at me head on.
Henderson. Damn, so close.
That and you're supposed to, get them caught on land and then hit them in the back, but what
Yeah, shit.
always kept happening
all
is
over.
they turn
This road is
they
toast.
turn around real
Leave me
fast,
gone.
and then you have to
I was hoping we'd catch a break.
bull
You
run them
wish.
again.
Lady, you ought to know by now. We gonna get fucked every time we turn around.
Head back to Halai and see if they know another way to Henderson.
But yeah, in number 2, it's
The only real
the
choice.
dungeon is a hell of a lot shorter.
Tired of this shit.
I did get stuck in it for about 45 minutes in my LP. By the way, I just got done playing the entire franchise of note, and this is the mega review. So, essentially, the lady takes a viral accelerant and becomes super strong. She hits like a tank. She has a chainsaw as her
Can't
main
hurt to take a
weapon.
look.
And it's a very long time to kill her. But midway through the boss fight, I kind of accidentally found a bug. Essentially, you're supposed to bait her into running her around this maze full of triggable traps, which you turn on before she gets into them and gets burned and blown to shit. But I did not know that. Matter of fact, they don't explain it. Matter of fact, I disarmed all the traps and cornered her and beat her down for what kind of felt like 35 minutes straight. And midway through, she midway through, I got infinite rage and kept beating the shit out of her. And that was the end of that game. It did take me about 45 minutes. I actually had to look up 3 different guys. But, yeah, I can't really find the footage for it now, but if you want to see what I'm talking about, check out my LP of the entire franchise. I have them set in playlists now. Go watch them. Matter of fact, I'll put links to the playlist at the end of this video and down below. If I remember to put them down below, by the way. But anyway, they'll definitely be in the end of this video. So if you choose to. But, yeah, characters get in the boat, fuck off. That's pretty much the end of Dead Island 2. I know, Riptide. Not Dead Island 2. Sorry, half sequels really confuse me. Considering technically this is a trilogy and not a trilogy at the same time. A lot of people think Dead Island Riptide was a complete sequel, but again, it's one of those confusing gray area type things. Originally, it was supposed to be a DLC, but last minute it got converted into its own game due to programming error. I mentioned the water physics engine thing bullshit, but that was the main contributor of making it a completely new game. Because they had to completely rewrite part of the engine for boats. And I'm just going to go ahead and fit this in here. Dead Island 1 and 2. I know Dead Island 1 was mostly cars. You gotta use cars to traverse big maps, but it's one of those things. There isn't a lot to do in some of the bigger maps in Dead Island 1. And the trucks are apparently invincible, and you can run over as many zombies as you want without them breaking. I didn't know this. Matter of fact, I thought it was going to explode a few times and I had to ditch it. There was one time I got it stuck perfectly. And I was pissed off and not pissed off at the same time due to the fascination of how perfectly I got it stuck. I think that's in one of the videos, actually. I developed a much better system of keeping all my raw footage. For some reason, during Riptide and Dead Island 1, I kept just dumping them in one massive folder. Whenever I did Dead Island 2, I came to the idea, oh wait, putting these in smaller folders labeled out based off of when they were recorded would be a much better way of doing this instead of one massive dump folder. Because the recording software doesn't name them. It just tells you the date, time. Oh, and every recording software I have used has this bug. If you record during the day, the hour of daylight savings, it completely ruins how it saves the videos. Matter of fact, I actually lost a few video footages that way during the series. I think it was primarily 1. I could be wrong. Riptide does use a lot of the same assets as 1. So they kind of blur in some areas. But in any way, I think it's about time to start talking about number 2. I did do most of the side quests in 1 and Riptide. And I just stopped doing them once I realized most of them were just fetch quests. But I did try to 100% Dead Island 1. I didn't because apparently there are 5 optional villages in the jungle map. I had no fucking idea. Matter of fact, it was mentioned in a story video. One of the story videos I watched for overall story of the entire franchise. But yeah, having 5 random villages that was actually in dialogue at one point, telling you, oh yeah, by the way, if you want to, there's like 5 other villages around here. You can go see what they want and do, go do it. Yeah, I completely glossed over that because it doesn't pop up in the quest tab, and I did every quest that popped up in the quest tab. But a quest doesn't pop up in the quest tab if you never interacted with the NPC that gives the quest. which I can see, but what I also can't see is having a total of 15 side quests, one of which is actually a chain of side quests in 5 locations spread out over a giant map, primarily jungle, and not a fun jungle. Matter of fact, due to bloom, the bloom setting I did not know about, that causes light to be all blurry like it is right now on screen. I couldn't figure out why I was having a hard time focusing on things in bright light areas. I did notice, for some reason, if you turn on the flashlight in a bright area, it lessens the bloom slightly enough to actually see. I have no fucking idea how to explain that, but it's a quirk of an old game, an HD remake of an old console gen game. You have to cut the game a lot of slack because it was originally made on Xbox. No, not Xbox 360. No, not Xbox One. The first Xbox. Matter of fact, it's almost impossible to play the original game unless you have Xbox and a physical copy of this game.
I need to lay off the junk
And
food.
it costs 3 times as much as the HD remake, by the way. Because now physical copies are actually collector's items. But at any rate, we're going to move on to 2. Man, I don't know how this is going to come out in the overall end of this video, but for some reason, the first 2 games were recorded in 30 frames a second, when number 2 was recorded at 60 FPS a second. So, there's that. So, essentially the story of Dead Island 2, development-wise, was a clusterfuck nightmare. So much so that they had to release 2 spin-off games to keep the rabid fans at bay. I was not one of those original rabid fans. But essentially they ended up getting rid of the original team who worked on the first 2 games in the franchise, because the game they wanted to make to the publisher did not feel like it would be a true sequel to Dead Island. And this leads down a rabbit hole of one of the biggest snafus in video gaming history. I'll get into a bit more later, but this game was in development hell for almost 1.5 decades. Which I find a little stupid. And as a little quick pointer, they got rid of the original game devs who made the first 2 games in the series. Because they felt their idea of a sequel to Dead Island 2 would not be a true, proper sequel to the first game. Because they wanted to focus a bit more on parkour and stealth than blitzkrieg hack and slash melee. Granted, that was also going to be in the game, but it was going to have a greater focus in parkour city urban environment. And if you don't know where I'm going, they made Dying Light. And by the time Dead Island 2 came out, they already made a sequel to Dying Light, which became one of the most profitable games in the history of video games, especially compared to what we got underneath the name of Dead Island 2. So, looking into the development of this game, they actually had to do the whole Old Yeller thing quite a few more times before they finally found a developer group that actually wanted to do this. By the way, they went with the lowest bidder. The first 2 times, the lowest bidder either A, bit off more than they could chew, and accidentally made an unplayable mess that was completely unoptimizable at all. So much so that they had to call in a group of people who specialize in optimization and programming to take a look at the clusterfuck of a game they accidentally made, and told them, well, start over. Start over from the ground up. You really fucked the ball. They also used a game engine that was completely unstable and was not designed for what they wanted to use it for. Matter of fact, it was so new that they were treading the waters of making their own tutorials on how to use the program. I forget the name of it, but it was Unity something. But essentially, when the publisher heard the words start completely over, they thought they meant the programmers, the programmer guild guys thought they should kill that dev team and bring in a new dev team. Now, this dev team had a little side project they were working on called Flash, which was an acronym, I forget for what, but essentially a semi-realistic soft-body destruction on humanoid-esque entities, which was modeled in real time. And this fit very well with Dead Island 2 system of combat. Because really, what more perfect can you get than a system specifically designed to convey the mutilation and dismemberment of zombies? So they used that as the baseline for the combat system in Dead Island 2. And it's fucking awesome. Matter of fact, I heavily, as a review-wise so far, I heavily recommend at least picking up Dead Island 2, even if it's only for 2 hours, just to experience the gore. How good the gore system is. Obviously, don't pay full price if you want to just see the gore physics. Buy it when it's on sale or something. You just really need to see the gore physics if you're into gore physics. Now, the game is a lot better combat-wise than the first two games. So much so. So, in this game, in Dead Island 2, the combat system, when it comes to the characters, do not specialize in a single weapon type, but weapon categories instead. And what I mean by weapon type, I mean blunt, sharp, pierce. Those are the three weapon types. And then you got your elemental types, like in the first game. Bleed, Cossack, Lightning, Fire. And I think that's it. And those can be put on any of the three basic types of damage to add elemental to its type. But you need to be careful. You see, there is a reason for this combat damage type to be a hell of a lot more flexible. And that's because zombies, there are zombie types mixed in to crowds to make it so that you need to constantly swap the weapon to best fight that type of zombie. For example, spiky variants of regular zombies, walkers or runners, are immune to bleed type element and pierce type damage. So any weapon with those damage types will deal bupkis to a spiky zombie. Which at first seems like it's adding stagnation to the combat system, but you need to keep in mind none of the characters are tied to a specific element or damage type. Matter of fact, they are more tied to the clade of weapon type or class. I think it's a subtag technically in the game text, but I played as Carla, which is a leech, can be played as a leech tank, dodge tank, or block tank.
These are the death pits.
But specializes more towards high DPS and or leeching, which is how I built my Carla. So, just fast-paced, blitzkrieg, frenzy type weapons. Oh, keep in mind, the bow staff in Riptide and this game, really fucking good. Matter of fact, I had to limit myself from using it in this game because there was at least like a good 2 or 3 episodes I played exclusively with a bow staff in Riptide. I kind of wanted to show off more than one single weapon type. Especially when they got it good the first time in the series they added. And the second. But, you see, each weapon type also can have certain elements put on it. For example, axes can only have caustic or fire. It's usually only two. They can always have the main upgrade, which is the one that causes zombies to take more damage in consecutive hits after the first one, stacking up to 5 times. Now, the combat, again, and the graphics, they're leaps and bounds better than the first 2 games in the franchise. Sorry about that, but essentially, obviously it should be leaps and bounds better, considering it was in development hell for almost a decade and a half from the original 2 games. So if it wasn't leaps and bounds better, you might as well not pick up the game. But it is leaps and bounds better in many ways. Matter of fact, despite not having the original creators, it somehow manages to be almost a carbon copy of the first 2 games with better combat. There is some puzzles here and there, unlike the first 2 games that come to mind. But the majority, the most common puzzle in this game is keycard death maze. So, essentially, there's a locked door. You need to go find a key or a key card. Get it. Not die. And use it. Specifically in that order. But, yeah. And the other thing is, in Dead Island 2, they removed vehicles. Period. At any point in this game, you cannot get into a car and drive around. Now, this is something I did not mention as in the first 2 games, but in the first act and parts of Act 2, they do give you a car. Matter of fact, in Act 1, in the first game, it was actually a staple part of the story, actually. They give you a supercar, specifically designed to be a Brit-shitting tank in the zombie apocalypse. But midway through the game, you have to dump it. You literally have to leave the fucker behind, because in the later half of the game, you cannot use cars. And that's one of those weird design choices. Usually in games, they give you the car midway into the game to play around with. As like a mid-game item, but this game kind of felt like it did it backwards. You know, you got it pretty much right after the tutorial mission, the first tutorial mission, you just get a car. And then midway through the game, they just take it away from you. But it's also probably because all the maps after the first one just get increasingly smaller and or more maze-like instead of bigger. But in Dead Island 2, everything kind of feels like it's the same size, really. Yes, there are big open expanses now and again, but really, I didn't test this myself, but it kind of felt like at any point I could run horizontal through a map and it would take the same amount of time to reach the end and to reach a wall. Pretty much every map. It kind of felt like I could run in a straight line and go about the same amount of distance without hitting a wall in every outdoor map. But it's one of those unique design choices of the game. You know, instead of focusing on one really big map, they cut it down into little pieces like they did in the first two games. Pretty much each act in the first two games resided in a single map, but in this game, each area is its own mini act. But essentially you get to go to average 3 to 4 mini zones to make one act. All the locales are gorgeous, well picked too, but none are as iconic as that one hotel and beach area in Dead Island 1. That is pretty much the most iconic bit of the entire franchise, in my opinion. And I wasn't a kid who grew up with this game, by the way. I decided to pick it up since it was on sale on Steam and play the entire series because it is a cult classic. And I can see why. The first two games were cult classic. Something I will say, in Dead Island 2, they moved away from the hybrid hack and slash horror straight into hack and slash. It definitely feels more hack and slash than the first two games. You know, if you just slowly go through the first game's areas, you know, the aura, the ambience, the desolation, the lifelessness gets to you and kind of puts you more on edge. The closest thing I came to that in this game is the beginning of the game. When you're level 1, scared shitless, walking through the back alleys, and then it kind of went downhill from horror. The horror aspect went downhill from there. But that's pretty much my only complaint. But, yeah. Essentially, it kind of drifts away from that horror aspect. There were very few times I actually felt like it was a horror game compared to the first two games, because it sort of leans more into the combat and reworking the combat, so you feel like you could kill more things. Closest I came to the spook factor in the first games, aside from the beginning of this game, is whenever the game forces you to keep moving forward without giving you a repair bench. Because then it's, well, I don't know how much longer I'm going to get to the next repair bench, and all of my good shit is either broken or on death's door. And usually, if you keep pushing on, when you get to that point, on average, they just hand you a repair bench. Some areas, they're a little too lucrative with repair benches. But some of the notable areas, aside from LA, movie theater, sorry, the movie theater, no, not theater, movie sets, sorry, the beach and carnival. And it's kind of weird, there's technically 3 beaches in this game. Or beach areas, mini beach areas in this game. I did try to do a 100% completion on this one too, but I ended up around 90%. I did skip a few quests, side quests, partly because I hit the level cap. And really felt that it would be just futility to get more unique items, since I already had a line of pretty nicely made weapons. But I did do a little mega episode prepping for Soleil. Now, I will talk about the DLCs in this game because, unlike the first game, they were actually totally integrated into the base game and not hidden in a little side menu somewhere in options on the main menu. Really, I only count DLC if it's connected to the main game for some reason. Any DLC that's like its own little sub-game within the game kinda doesn't feel like a DLC truly. You know, the whole point of a DLC is to continue into it on your main character and get some goodies to go kill shit in the base game. So, I will bring up the DLCs now because I accidentally, in episode 2, I accidentally picked up the house flyer and got sucked into the house DLC, which I did until I got to the piglet boss fight. And found out he was actually a DPS wall.
This one's down to the scientists. Ah.
I already got
because they didn't intend for you to start the house, well, sorta start the house DLC at level 2.
Immune? I heard they were looking.
So they put him in there to kinda discourage people from continuing house until they came back. to
your paycheck.
it to kill Pig. But it's one of those odd design choices. You know, this is not an item that
You're not
you just
serious about
randomly
those
walk
right?
upon out in the wild.
Suicide to even try.
No, this is an item you randomly
Everything the Zompocalypse has
walk
been happening so
upon
far.
in the first safe house of the game. It pops up like one of the junk items you can pick up. And I accidentally picked it up, got roofied, and thrown into a murder mansion. Now, I'll talk a bit more about the story of that DLC after I talk about the main story. So, remember how I brought up that they were testing with something called the autophage in that bio lab? And it escaped and mutated by simulating that prion. Well, you see, it turns out in the first game, all the main characters having O-type, the same type of blood was a key contributing factor of them being immune, and sorta not. You see, a prion can only enter the cell if that cell lets it in. Now, the main reason why humans have developed blood types over millennia is that certain blood types are actually better at resisting certain diseases. So, having more than one blood type in a population increases the likelihood of not the entire population dying when a new disease crops up. It's called not putting all your eggs in the same basket. So, essentially, blood types can also be called immune system types. Sorta. Since the coding on the blood cell determines the blood type, that coding also determines what types of ports it has for other cells to interact with. So, this prion that mutated with the CRISPR autophage couldn't enter that specific blood type's blood cell, causing the cataclysm zip bomb effect I mentioned. But, you see, this disease is not actually a virus. It is a completely separate entity known as autophage. It is a doomsday countdown in the human genome, which triggers randomly and was originally set to go off in a far future. But the main scientist slash doctor in Dead Island 2, which you help make the cure, sends you on a wild goose chase to collect more data. But he already knows what the autophage is. He reveals it in the end. So essentially the story is a bit of a copy and paste from the first game, where you play as a character running around in a wild goose chase to try and get a cure made, and then last minute get the rug pulled out from under you, and there is truly no hope for a cure. Because everyone already has autophage ticking away in their system. It's just not active yet. That CRISPR virus thing I mentioned earlier, he artificially triggered the autophage to occur early so he can figure out what exactly it did and how to counter it. So, pretty much the main story in this game is copy and paste from the first game, with a few new side avenues all mentioned here soon. Not including the DLC. There are a few deviations. But like I was saying, in the first two games, Dead Island 1 and Riptide, it is that gene editing tool that broke out in one of those laboratories and assimilated it itself as a part of the SARS virus. And yes, this is the part I mentioned earlier where there was semi-retcon. That's bound to happen, especially when you start old yellowy, taking your game dev teams out back and shooting them. That's bound to happen. Granted, this is a nice game. I heavily recommend it. The story is shit. If it wasn't due to the fact it was copied and pasted from the first game, with a few side hiccups here and there, it would be a pretty shitty story. Especially, they had to tie it in with a slight retcon. Matter of fact, the game technically doesn't have a true ending yet. So, I am skipping quite a bit of the story, since it's mostly semantics. It's literally just busy work. For the sake of busy work. But, you're helping a group of Hollywood celebrities get out of LA. But, you see, you get sidetracked and prioritize getting a cure for the zombie plague instead. Like in the first game. Well, I mean, no, the inverse of the first game. In the first game, you get sidelined by becoming a survivor and helping the survivors survive the zombie epoch. When you realize, oh, wait a minute, we were supposed to go do that thing. Why in the fuck are we helping these people again? They're going to die. Why are we wasting our time here? Instead of that, it's
Not gonna lie.
it's actually the opposite now thinking about it.
I'm tough.
Essentially, you go fuck yourself over sideways to help the doctor. He ditches you, and you go to plan B, which is help the group of survivors you met in Act 1. Because fuck that guy. Now, some of the side hiccups I mentioned earlier. Sam B from the first game appears in this game as a important story, semi-important story character, and kind of ties into the fact that I mentioned earlier that this virus this autophage is not the same virus that he encountered in the first 2 games of the franchise. That was a one-shot deviation fuck-up. Again, it became a completely separate thing called... Well, this game calls it the false autophage outbreak. It wasn't the true one. And that comes up in some of the different variants I'll get into a little later. So, essentially, Sam B gets bit. And he actually begins to turn. And that guy, that scientist, he actually managed to make a cure. But you see, the problem with the cure is he had to commit an atrocity to make the cure. His daughter was artificially implanted with the autophage when she was a wee zygote. He had to do this with thousands of zygotes until he got her.
Gotta keep moving, right?
Well, if anyone
A zygote
can.
truly immune to the autophage. No clock, no gene ticking down to doomsday. A truly bona fide cure. But you see, in order to synthesize this cure, quotes, his daughter, aka the lab rat, needs to be harvested for stem cells that essentially act as a counter virus to the autophage, and it goes into the DNA and removes the doomsday counter. Now, people who have the doomsday counter not in them naturally are these things called Newmen, which I'll get into in a little bit. So, rage or fury in the first 2 games was this moment where you let out the primal rage that the false autophage put all the ferals in. Now, all the characters in the first game aren't true immune to the actual virus. They were immune to the weird offshoot that was accidentally birthed in that research laboratory. I'll be right back. So, again, the autophage is different from the virus in the first 2 games, like I've been saying. So, essentially, the doctor succumbs to the autophage, and he becomes a super variant, which I'll get into in a bit. But essentially, you have to kill his ass, and the original plan was to leave with his daughter, Sam B, and his girlfriend after you cured Sam B, since he wasn't immune. Also, the cure is pretty much just a gene edit, similar to CRISPR, that patches over the genetic code that that leads to the autophage. He couldn't outright remove the autophage because it was ingrained within the genetic code of people. If he completely removed it, then it would completely destroy what a person is genetically. It was so deep in the code that it was part of the human OS, for lack of a better word. And removing it removed the entire OS, or made it so it wouldn't work. So, new men are revealed in this game as the truly immune. They are pseudo-chosen, and I'll get into this a little later when we do the DLCs of 2. So, essentially, the autophage, according to this new continuity, is actually a physical part of people in this continuity. So, getting rid of it gets rid of people. So, he came to that conclusion. So, the cure, in a Newman, they don't have the doomsday counter. But the doomsday counter is already triggered. It just doesn't affect them the way it does people. Hence the name New Men. They're actually a new species of people. They have telepathy. They also can semi-control and conduct the infected. Or, from this point on, I'll just refer to them as the feral. Because it kind of makes a bit more sense with this whole new narrative. So, the autophage is not your traditional zombie virus fare. It is quite literally a true doomsday scenario. There should not be a cure. And that is literally one of the lines that is constantly shoved down your throat in this game. There is a group of new men who tail your ass through the entire game to try and beat the fact you are no longer human into you. You are new men. And that's the problem. The Newmen have tricked this doctor into helping them kick off the autophage early. He did make a cure. A person who creates blood that contains stem cells that can patch over the doomsday counter, effectively making a false Newman. Essentially, they no longer have the Doomsday counter active. But true Newman actually have that counter, that timer set to true 0 instead of NA. Hence why they can use Fury in this universe and telepathy. They are actually one of the Horde and not. They don't have outright control, or at least they are not shown to have outright control over the Feral. Because if they did, there wouldn't be any safe houses in this game. Pretty much, it is futility. There is nothing you can do aside from getting that magic blood sample from that girl. But you see, she escaped because she does not want to be used as some farm for other people to essentially live off of her blood like the only vampire.
Can't keep the doc waiting.
Well, a reverse vampire. She just didn't want to live like that, which I can kind of agree with. But the problem I have with this sort of storyline is if he was truly a heartless scientist who was willing to essentially pour gasoline on the world and light it with a match, why did he give the only out of humanity free will?
Ocean Avenue. Nearly there now.
We're talking about a guy who was willing to literally pour gasoline on the entire planet Earth and light it on fire.
Infected creeps are planning something? Don't bother.
That's essentially what he did. He did this shit. Well, really, he didn't. He sort of did the first 2 outbreaks in this franchise, but sort of not. He wasn't there. He initialized the research, had them develop the CRISPR thing that so happened to get cross-contaminated with
Okay, dudes.
a prion and start the first 2 games. You know, I kind of agree that part's not his fault. But, like I said, the first 2 games were false autophage cataclysm events, not true autophage. And case in point, there are elemental variants in number 2. We have zombies that can wield fire and either subsist in fire, even in the first games. Burning walkers. They're just walkers and runner zombies that are perpetually on
I
fire.
wonder if there's a boba place here.
In this game, we actually have zombies that can wield fire, not be fire. In Dead Island 2, we also have Well, I also guess in the first two games too. Zombies that have become one with this chemical called Cossack X, which is one of the damaging elements in this game. Because the scientists were disposing of bodies by dissolving them in Cossack X and dumping them in the sewer. Now, there are two, I know there's even zombies that can launch electricity in number 2. There's also the screamers, but those also pop in the first two games. And I have not mentioned them yet. Essentially, they scream real loud, bring in enemies. They're apparently weak to blunt damage in all of the games. Bloaters are actually resistant to blunt because they're fatty. And they're also apparently weak to electricity. But you see, really, these variants, they kind of prove my point here. Autophage is completely different in number 2. It is a completely new animal compared to the first two games. And to help prove my point, the DLCs. The House DLC, which is the first DLC of number 2. Essentially, you follow, you're trying to follow the paper trail of a character named Hope, who we never see, to a mansion which appeared to have a weird deaf-attuned sex cult on day 1 of the Z epoch. But as you delve deeper into House, you find that things are off. Case in point, chattering heads that should not be talking at all, because magic. You see, in-house, we are introduced to a
Have a drink.
semi-Metroidvania-esque
Get the hell out of LA.
level design. Essentially, you have to backtrack to previous areas,
I'm looking for
and as you keep progressing through the story there, you get new tools and items that can break through certain walls
They look human.
previously in the game.
so.
Well, okay then. Humans could be redeemed. Don't need to waste a bullet on this one.
But the game, I know this DLC is too short to actually utilize it to the full potential.
Agreed, but you can call me Ruben.
Unless you want to go back and
I'm ready.
collect all of the
Vaccine?
secret DLC weapons you can only get once you beat House.
Gotta keep your specialness.
And after you do the Return to House quest.
He doesn't want to take his shot.
Luther. Hey,
But
don't worry. It's just.
one of the key things I want to point in here is
Where was I?
CDC's gonna.
CCC. Right.
The
CCC is gonna. Hey,
Bloom
I told-
zombies.
Snap, that's
Essentially,
right.
they
You
are
want me to
zombie
cut it up?
corpses that have long died, but
So glad you're here. Thought they were gonna send
they kept growing.
Take you to Colorado. Just you.
Matter of fact, in the base game,
People here getting hope when they
people slurry that they flush down the toilet
we'll be okay.
actually is still alive.
You get up
Matter
there,
of fact,
I
it
always say,
recongealed
you got a miracle in your
as
We can get you to Colorado.
a giant mass
I ain't saying no to a free ride. How does this all work?
in the sewer
Well,
that is
we need to
actually
remove here
causing
first, yeah.
all of the weird earthquakes throughout the base story,
No, Tisha.
and is only revealed to the player in a side quest I opted out of midway through, partly because it was too fucking hard.
They're more important than people starving?
Yeah. I mean, no. I mean, kind of. I can't really talk about it right now.
Oh no, not hard, tedious.
You stay here.
You have to go through a fucking death maze. One wrong turn results in death,
Can handle it.
Hey, Doc, you know we ran out of food.
and misusing of your
Dad! I am
3
not
health
controlling.
packs
I have to
the
do
game
my
gives
share.
you at this point
Obviously, you've lost your mind.
results in death also.
Doc, she wants me to
But you need to collect this thing,
I'm sick of talking.
not
Jimmy's
die,
right. I need to do
and
something.
escape.
All that's happened. See, I'm gonna let you out of my sight.
But I could never find the thing before I died, is the problem. So, I opted out of it. The other reason is I technically already had a similar item
Can't lose you two.
You're right.
that the quest gave you. So, yeah.
I shouldn't put this on you. It's not fair.
But,
Well, okay then.
See you later.
essentially,
Yes, there's no place for human beings.
Hey,
these
Doc, a word of advice.
brain fruit things
You let your daughter take
can
her
only be
chances just like everyone
destroyed
Jimmy,
with the new crossbow item.
focusing on without your
But
bullshit.
I'll get into this about now, actually.
else. I'm gonna go for a smoke.
So,
Yeah,
you see, this death cult
Fuck you looking at.
turned out to be a real cult that actually got it right.
I need to read
They actually foresaw the autophage and its true nature
make yourself
and have
known.
graffitied
Should have
it
some good news.
on walls
Oh,
throughout
not
the
a
base
problem.
game
Get real friendly with one of your
if you go looking for them. And it's also the same graffiti you find throughout the DLC in higher numbers.
Can't keep those on
And
you,
that's
lady.
one of the things I like. They actually foreshadowed the DLC in random graffiti. That's a little plus to the story, I guess. But essentially, these brain fruits, they have managed to metastasize as a method to infiltrate technology and fuck with it. Which is really bad, considering this death cult managed to get the technology through multi-dimensional projection to create a massive supercomputer that can store genetic data along with a virtual copy of their soul to such of a high quality degree, the autophage, or the entity behind the autophage, decided to try and fuck with this computer, which is what brings you here. They led you on, and it's also revealed that this supercomputer also orchestrated the events that got your character stranded in Hell A and follow the paper trail to that doctor to kickstart the entire fucking story. Which I am going to pull the cat out of the bag here. They copied this from the first game, by the way. DLC reveals that the entire thing was orchestrated by an entity that played you like a fucking puppet. Yeah, they pulled that one out their ass, but they did it in an interesting way. So, you have to essentially tear out the virus from this computer. And you see, the autophage has materialized in all the dead bodies they casted aside. Matter of fact, it also managed to possess one of the 3 messengers. And you have to kill his ass. A 3rd time, technically. Because he died when he became got beheaded and became one of the talking heads. Then he technically died again when the autophage possessed him. And then he'd take his non-talkative head and put it back on his body, not realizing it was corrupted by the autophage, and then kill his ass a 3rd time. I actually kind of like it when games introduce an entity that you technically kill 3 times. Or technically was killed 3 times. But essentially you have to pull out the autophage, computer fuckers, out of the computer. And then you're done with the DLC. Pretty much the entire DLC is just a little bit of busy work until they get to that climax. Then there is a side quest, which... Hold on. So, before we move on to the next DLC, there was a little side DLC, side quest thing where you return to house to find the Mother of Hope and help her in her plight of being reunited with her daughter. And this kind of is
Can't be too careful.
you follow the paper trail to find
Food, no water.
a viable DNA sample from her body in order to put back in the computer.
Is the doc gonna be back?
Because
Fucking better be.
for some reason, you accidentally kill a zombie when you first show up,
Tried taking a
and
shower. No
her,
Bob went to
due
clean
to some
Hey,
crossed wires
smell
and
good.
bugs,
up. I'll go look.
becomes
Got
trapped
anything
in
else?
your head.
Are my ears working? Did someone just offer to help out? That would be great.
But
We won't
essentially,
last long without fresh water. Bob was headed for the
she
gas
was a
downstairs in the
failed
store. I'll check it out.
computer implantation. See, the autophage doesn't just corrupt the body or the DNA. There is, once the autophage is infected on a person, their entire DNA sequence is fucked. Cannot be re-cloned, which is the purpose of this computer. To keep the minds and genetic info of a person to reconstitute later, when the autophage is dead and gone. So obviously the supercomputer is not going to allow the possibility of remassitizing the autophage whatsoever, considering it has the ability to pervert and corrupt electronical systems. Case in point, House. The final boss in House is you pretty much tearing the infection out of the computer. Which proves that the autophage is not a virus. It is not some random doomsday counter. It is actually a physical force of nature in this reality. Or perversion. Now, so obviously, there is no surviving the autophage. It is literally
What's it got to do with you?
beyond technology. It has the ability to forever adapt and pervert. Meaning, there is something worse. Because it is no normal virus. If it has the ability to essentially fuck with non-carbon based life forms, aka silicone and computer bits.
Really?
We think you are ready.
So,
Okay.
how do we top this in Soul?
You may be surprised by what you find.
I shit you not. It's pretty much, again, a little bit of busy work. You have to go help this crazy lady kill the speakers because they make her head hurt. And they were used to technically, this is ground zero technically in this continuity. Soleil is ground zero. These speakers had a look very similar to a piece of technology you find in House. Matter of fact, I think it's done so on purpose. In House, there's these weird orb things that give you infinite fury. And they look oddly familiar to these speaker balls. Essentially, these speakers have these, essentially, I'm just going to call them magic fuck you balls at this point. Because when powered with electricity and the correct sound sequence causes them to produce some form of electromagnetic radiation that triggers the doomsday counter in the DNA, causing people to turn into ferals or new men. So, by the way, that doctor I mentioned before, he thought he caused the zombie epoch again due to his last two fuck-ups. So he just automatically assumed he caused
Off the grass.
it.
Not likely.
But no, the cult behind that supercomputer I keep bringing up had something to do with this. I don't know if there's an in-game paper trail you can follow to learn that, but obviously these speaker balls kind of feel like the Fury balls in House. So, essentially, the majority of the DLC is you running around fucking with the speakers, turning them off, breaking them, until you find a message from a different timeline within the multiverse, because these speaker balls kinda have an effect on local space-time continuum, and multiverses can bleed through each other when these speakers are turned on. And they send you on a quest to find one of the other Newmen from the end cutscene of the first of the base game. And it's then revealed that there is a entity in this area, which is the super boss enemy of this DLC. From all thematic context, he is what I would like to call an outer being, or lesser manifestation of the autophage. No, he is not the physical manifestation of the autophage. He is a lesser. Because I like to believe it's a lesser, because he gets his ass murked by the fucking speaker balls. That's literally a gameplay mechanic in the boss fight. I shit you not. Is to beat him to death with the speaker ball before you can damage him. Ergo, if these speaker ball things are supposed to, well, kindle the autophage, you would think it would not be able to kill the zombies. Which I kind of noticed early on in the DLC, when I noticed you could pick up the speaker balls and throw them at a zombie, sending a wave of anti-autophage in a small area. You know, sends a golden ripple out that just instantly kills zombies near it. Meaning that these speaker balls either A, cause the autophage, B, manifest the autophage, C, which is what I'm going with, calls forth a higher power in the chain of autophage. You know, obviously, the ferals are the lowest part of the chain of command here. They're just probably the equivalent of a piss ant to a human. So, these speaker balls are actually calling a greater force when they're turned on. And that's shown by putting the zombies in a frenzy when they cluster around them. They're also attracted to them. But the moment you break them out of the case and throw them at a zombie, in my opinion, if it was whatever magic was in the speaker ball empowering the zombies, I mean the ferals, it wouldn't kill them. No. When it's powered on, it does frenzy the ferals, but I think there's a slightly higher, lesser entity put into those bodies. Because they were faster, they hit harder. And if it's a runner, they can dodge twice as good. For example. Now, the big boss of this DLC, best way to describe it is a lesser avatar of the autophage. And or lesser demon. Now I bring up demon because during the cutscene that opens up to the big final blowout boss fight, that lady starts speaking in tongues and accidentally summons whatever this avatar is. And this avatar is immortal until it's hit by one of the speaker balls. Hence why I say lesser avatar. Because that ball is marking that vessel for a higher authority to come in. But those higher authorities are sealed. Is what I'm trying to get to. At least that's my opinion. But it kind of explains, since, this is an artificially triggered autophage. It's not meant to be here yet. And there are rules in place to prevent higher entities within this food chain from coming in. Hold on, I'll be right back. Sorry about if you heard the hound. Hear the hound. I've been talking for almost 2 hours non-stop, and I don't have the voice to redo that statement. So, when he killed the big boss, he's the character even states this. He's not dead or gone. He is sealed. And considering that the effects these speaker balls have on regular zombies, when powered, they empower them, but when you hit them with the speaker ball, they just die. I kind of feel like it's a magical artifact marking them for a greater entity to come in and take over in their place. But since this isn't the true doomsday counter, but it being artificially triggered, there are limitations of these outer beings placed on them. Because the doomsday counter was not meant to go off yet. But, yeah, like I was saying,
Could I burn a weapon?
the autophage is not a normal virus. In this continuity, I believe it is the doomsday scenario. It is the end. Also, it is revealed by the Newman that this isn't the first time this has happened in the history of people. It has, in this continuity, it has happened to every major ancient human civilization. The Newman of those people survived, went on, and they became smarter than if they didn't. They gained powers compared to basic people who would just turn into feral monsters. So essentially what I'm getting at is this does not feel like a traditional zombie virus at all. Let's see here. We have potential ties to eldritch entities. We have highly adaptable molders of flesh in play here that can warp tissues to infect computers. We also have entities making and having the foresight to build a futuristic Noah's Ark for people, set up to be cashed in by future generations once the autophage is eliminated. They picked builders, doctors, pretty much every person with a PhD in anything in that arc. Sorry about that. He wanted me to go play with him, so I did. So what I was about to say was, ergo, possibly an eldritch entity incursion or demon incursion is occurring. But that's just my theory. Yeah, this is one of the examples I mentioned on screen right now. Essentially, those infiltrate electronics and fuck with them. Now, this just shows how much bioengineering is going on here. That there has to be some greater intelligence morphing it. There's this guy who's trying to... His long-term goal at the moment is to essentially play Doom on rat neurons. And it just shows how difficult, even in lab conditions as of today. Sorry about that. But, yeah, like I was saying, yeah, there's this guy trying to integrate rat neurons to play Doom. And considering he's not done yet, it goes to show you how hard it is to incorporate Oh, you could probably look it up right now. His most famous video off the top of my head is Meat Berry, or Meat Grape. But essentially, it's really hard to integrate organic components into non-organic machine components. But yeah, so there's something more here than just your run-of-the-mill virus. But that's my theory portion done for now. But yeah, do I recommend you play the entire franchise? No. Do I recommend you play the main titles of the series? Yes. Story-wise and gameplay-wise, they have nothing to do with this game. Or they just shared the name. Again, they were just put out there underneath the name of the IP to keep up hype for the sequel, the long-awaited sequel. To my understanding, that and I shit you not, both of their stories is, oh, it was all a dream, as incorporated into their ending. Also, one of them is just a trippy mindfuck, endless loop thing. But yeah, I highly recommend the base games, especially the first two games. Don't recommend 100%ing any of the games, considering after a while, a lot of it's just busy work. Alright, so
You see anything like that?
for those of you watching this on video, a clip of Soleil's playing.
I've mapped it all out.
But essentially,
Perfect place for a festival.
yeah, I do heavily recommend
Crazy.
all the original Dead Island
I think this lady can
games.
help us. She knows about the beat. We gotta get to the main stage.
2 is a little spotty. You know, it's essentially this first two games,
Then I'm going.
but
I'll find this
better
kid's
and
ass.
new.
Head through the eco village.
But aside from that, and the fact it's definitely delving into the deep end here
This stupid festival.
when it comes to the story it's not telling you. And how the original creators actually made Dying Light. Kind of goes to show you that, really, despite this being a really good game and all, that whatever story design this game had from the first two games was not originally going to be the story design of what we ended up. Case in point, the Explodies, the giant, the guys, yeah, those ones.
Grace,
In the first two
this
games,
beat's gotta
they were
gotta find this eco village.
that was their sort of main phrase. But, you know, it added a completely high layer of creepy value to the game too. But now it's hello, bye bye. Which kind of feels a bit more cartoony and funny. Less dark. But this kind of goes into what I'm about to get into. So, the first two, considering it was a false autophage outbreak, not a true one. Like I said, it mutated with a prion. Adding, well, pretty much taking away from its original ability. And those, since there are no other Newmen that pop up, this kind of really adds to it. Since it wasn't the true autophage outbreak, like in 2, those guys could have possibly actually been true Newmen, but due to the prion mutating, something went wrong, and they became exploding. Having a little piece of their sentient soul attached to, but essentially a bag of misery and rot. So, yeah, but in the sequel, it kind of feels like they're friendly. Like, the part of their brain that's supposed to, well, beg for help or warn you to stay away. Isn't there. Again, they only say hello, bye-bye. So, really, you know, they're trying to coach you to come near to them, in a way, you know, friendly. Meaning whatever is possessing them has full control, and it's smart enough to actually vocalize at you instead of feral grunts and screams. Meaning the bombers possibly have a higher cognitive ability than the typical fare in both games. But in the first 2 games, they kind of felt like shackled, tortured souls forced to do the bidding of another. In this game, they feel more like actual enemies that are willing to be in the state they are,
Eco-village.
or in
We're like
their
the rich
actions. But yeah, that's probably an interesting design choice between developers, but it kind of leans more into this mutated false autophage in the first 2 games, instead of it always being this type of autophage. Either that, or it's proving that it's definitely a brigadier system is in play, and the more people that are getting closer to that doomsday counter in their DNA from counting down opens, I know, allots these outsiders more purchase into the material plane. But yeah, it's a pretty solid game. Highly recommended. I think I was supposed to stop talking about the theory bullshit. But you have to admit, my boomer voice is pretty good. But yeah. So the problem I have with number 2, it doesn't really have an ending to its story. It's not closed yet. It's a book yet to be closed, in my opinion. And if they come out with number 3 before they actually finish the fucking story in this game, I'm not going to buy it. But that's the stupid theme of this entire franchise. They never meant to end the fucking game when they did. That's my only complaint with the franchise. If they end up ending this game where they did, I saw it coming. Because it's literally the same fucking bullshit. First page to end. They didn't... Well, I guess they meant to end Riptide when they did. But technically it's in new hands. And they probably didn't mean to end Dead Island 2
What happened here?
with a half-assed story. Oh, this is one of the bits on screen right now. Essentially, you have to chum these zombies. It's really fun scene, but it kind of drags on if you don't have any knockdown weapons, like this character, since it specializes in frenzy high DPS bullshit, and not single hit heavy knockdowns, which is what you need for this area. But yeah, essentially you chum them, and the lesser avatar of the autophase shows up. The main reason why I keep saying it's a lesser avatar is because obviously there's something bigger in the food chain, like I've been saying as part of my theory. But yeah, once you get down to it, after a while, it gets placid. You know, the enemy types, variants, and all that. Yeah, they added a shitload of those, but they can't mix them too much because certain enemy types actually cancel out your weapon type. So in order to kill those enemies, you would need to switch your weapon, but if your weapon's really good at killing everything else on the screen, you don't want to switch it too soon. But yeah, it's one of those games. It's really good, really fun, but if you sit down and play all of them all at once like I did, back to back, it gets old, it gets stagnant. Hell, the few biggest complaints I've seen with Dead Island 2 thus far is that the enemies get old, they get stagnant. In certain areas, there is some mild randomization with certain zombie types in certain areas, but they can't really mix the different varieties too much because they either A, outright negate an entire element in your toolbar, or B, bulk standard same bullshit. And in some side quests and story quests like this one, they just rely on hopes and prayers of infinitely spawning zombies until you do the thing that it wants you to. This fan thing is probably one of the best examples of it that comes to mind at the moment, considering I'm talking right over it. But and really, it's just frustrating at a point. Hell, in the first two games, if he got killed by the final boss, since it was originally intended for multiplayer and its balancing choices and optimizations, they let you infinitely respawn to kill the same boss to compensate that fact. And at times, I came to the point where I wish they did the same thing in this game. Oh, they also let you carry infinite health packs, which I do agree is a bad design choice, you know, making you favor buying one-time use items to set some in excess he can't afford to buy new and fun toys to play with. But once you get the good fun toys, you don't want to drop them or replace them with less fun, better toys. But that's kind of the other thing is, once you get down to it, all the different weapon types aren't that memorable. Yes, the combat system is, but if every item is just a slightly different skin of another item, are you really using more than one item? For example, the claws I'm using have the same animations of guitars and brass knuckles, but have slightly wider range and the sever type or cutting type damage type. Hell, before I started this DLC, for example, I decided to collect as many of the unique weapons that best synergized with my build. And all of them, I shit you not, were bleed type unique weapons. There's only 8 unique weapons in the entire fucking game, and I end up picking the only type of unique weapons in the entire fucking game that this DLC endgame boss is immune to. Because he is a bleed element boss. And I didn't realize that until midway through one of my attempts on the final boss. But to be honest, I should have figured that, considering he pulled a Wolverine and metastasized a completely new body out of chum. So that's probably my fault. But it also kind of proves that theory I mentioned of it being possibly a lesser avatar of the autophage. But yeah, really, I only recommend this game if you're truly curious on why it's such a cult classic franchise. 2 is good and fun. It's a lot better than the first 2 games, but it's a better version of the first 2 fucking games in the franchise. So, and considering the original developers from the first 2 games were old Yellard, because they didn't want to make the publisher's envisionment of a true sequel to number 2. Each and every new variant, you know, the gameplay loop and the story, every now and again they pull out a completely new type of variant and throw it at you, tell you and force you to learn how to play around it, and then they make it a regular fucking enemy. Granted, there are a lot weaker versions of the named enemies you fight, but it gives this false sense of superiority, like, oh, hey, look, I killed that one in 5 hits. The first one I killed took me 50. But yeah, that's the other problem. Really, it kind of has the same fault as most RPGs do. Once you get to a certain point, the only enemies that really give you a problem are the bullshit suiciders and the tanky beefcakes that hit like a fucking semi. But
Gotcha, you melty motherfucker.
really, for the combat system to be really good and grading over a while, again, there's solid games, really.
Himself, then disappeared.
There's not much bad I can say besides mediocre at best.
Open, please.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun playing this, but they're definitely not the kind of games I'm going to pull up again in a few years and continue playing. Because, really, all the characters, aside from the little bonuses they get for doing certain things, playing around those really don't feel good unless you're into playing that variety of character. Pretty much, from the character options, you do get quite a few, 8 total, but so far from what I looked at them, there's 2 versions of 2 different of the 4 core players you got in the first game. There's one that specializes in high DPS stealth. There's one that specializes in glass cannon DPS, but all up in your face regen. Carla, who is semi dodge leech tank / block leech tank, or DPS leech tank like I built her. There's slow heavy hitter that hits like a semi and can take a beating, but overall lower DPS. Few others I forget what their stick is, because 2 of them are into more throwing than actual combat. And number 2, I really love the curveball mechanic. Essentially, they replaced all throwable weapons like Molotovs with, instead of having very few limited number in the game, like they did in the first 2 games, you get an infinite number of them on a cooldown. But it's kind of off, too, because once you get to a certain point, you don't need curveballs, like for this character. Really, the only time I really use them is whenever I remember, oh shit, I have that. Or, man, I really wish I had Fury at the moment. Oh well, I'll throw this down instead, to compensate. Hell, I collected the best curveball in the game, in my opinion, in this playthrough. And it's literally just the standard curveball you get at the very first one that's handed to you for free, which is just a bottle of chum with a landmine in it. It's pretty much the upgraded version of the first one you get in the game. It attracts zombies. It takes the stupid ones off of you to go over there and eat the chum off the floor. But it has a timed-based explosive in it that blows their asses up. But, yeah. Really fun game if you're interested in watching my full Let's Play series on the entire franchise. I heavily recommend you take a look. Some YouTubers I heavily recommend looking into if you're looking more for the deep lore and reading into the pages shit. Roanoke Gaming. He does a lot of reading between the pages, and not just this franchise, but any franchise with an artificial fictional bioweapon of some type. But more specifically, any form of biomass reconfiguration, like Dead Space. I forget his name. Let me pull it up here. Suggestive Games is the name of the channel, but he did a really good story so far for Dead Island 1 and 2 and Riptide. But I know the story of this franchise thus far, it's one of those stories that I know games that likes to hide the story between the pages, scattered out as secret little mementos throughout the game. It's not one of those games that likes to tell you the full story, for lack of a better word. But the main story that it does tell you is piss poor, in my opinion, when it comes to writing standards. Of, you know, if I bought a book and this was the story, I would ask for a return. Because really, it's the same story told to us 3 times in 3 slightly different ways. First game, main goal is to get a cure made for this virus, since you are one of the immune for.
So this is the Solar Festival.
And you get sidetracked doing essentially side quests, and then you realize midway through the game that, wait a minute, why in the fuck are we doing this? Should we be getting off this island that's about to blow up? Yeah, I think so too. Let's go get off this island before it goes up in nuclear fire. And hopefully get a cure made. And then in 2, you get led on throughout the entire thing to try and get off the island and get a cure made from your blood. But it turns out that the lady that has been helping you this entire way has actually been secretly trying to use you as lab rats before she kills you, tries to kill you, thus maintaining the quarantine on the Twin Islands. And hopefully allowing everyone else to go up in nuclear fire to prevent future containment breaches. But obviously they did a good job. It's just that someone else fucked up playing around with something he probably shouldn't have been doing in Hell A. Oh, hell, I don't even think that doctor was the main contributor, like I said. So far from what I've seen, he just thought he was the cause of the outbreak. And died from said outbreak. When in actuality, that death cult probably had something to do with it. because they revealed to us once you complete the DLC that they orchestrated the entire fucking thing from the plane crash all the way up to the point you complete the house DLC. And they have very similar, suspiciously similar technology as the speaker ball things.
Oh man. Take your turn, guys.
So, yeah, for an outright story, yeah, I would probably return it if it was a book, but really, gameplay is,
Look at this place.
is a good 8 out of 10 in my opinion. It does get grating at times. It does have its hiccups now and again. But at least in number 2, they took out the fucking rammers. Those are by far the worst enemy of this entire franchise. Oh, and they also kind of don't make sense because straitjackets are just meant to deal with crazy people. They're not meant to deal with crazy people who get shot and stabbed. I have no fucking idea why those things were bulletproof. Aside from fuck you. But, yeah, yeah, in order to understand this entire game story, you need to do a lot of reading between the pages, especially if you want to get into the deep lore aspect of and the theory crafting here in the story plot, which is actually a good 10 out of 10 if you look at it through that lens, story-wise, but it would be, in my opinion, 6 out of 10 for the story they give you, 9 out of 10 for the story you have to read between the pages. By the way, a lot of what I said earlier was mostly theory and reinterpretation of the story they give you because they've retconned a fuckload of it in number 2. Again, that's bound to happen when you old yeller the original people who made the first game. The first 2 games, mind you. And replace them with completely new devs who obviously want to be the future of the series. So they're going to try and rewrite what they feel should be in there. But from the first 2 games, they definitely weren't leaning into the eldritch horror aspect of this. Oh, and from what I could get from the majority of the fan consensus, a lot of the original people who came from Dead Island 1 and Riptide prefer Dying Light over this game as the spiritual sequels, which I haven't played those, but I can see, you know, spiritually, it's the people who made the original 2 games. IP-wise, they have nothing to do with each other aside from the same soul, you could say. But yeah, gameplay kind of gets repetitive after a while. And really, were you expecting the gameplay to actually be better than the first 2 games? Oh yes, it is technically a better version of the first two games, gameplay-wise. Story-wise, not too much. And it's definitely deviated from the original two games in more ways than one.
I saw her. I need to find her.
With a greater focus on single-player campaign over multiplayer this time around, which I'm surprised they didn't go with the first game, because really, the games that survive have a good single-player. The games that thrive have an overwhelmingly good multiplayer, which, so far from what I understand, is hectic and chaotic. Considering that I didn't mention that they added interactable elemental physics. For example, you can use infinite jerry cans of certain liquid types, plaster it all over the ground, and make hazards you can lure enemies in. But really, once you get out of the first few 10 levels,
Everything's normal again.
it just becomes faster and more fun to hack and slash your way through endless hordes. But yeah, it's really hard to say. It's one of those games that I heavily recommend you pick up. Finish if you're interested in the story and general gameplay and level design, but it's one of those games that's really hard to sell unless you've played it before, or have memories of playing it before, or have a friend who actually plays the game and recommends it to you, and you do co-op. Yeah, that's a good reason to get the game. But yeah, I kind of felt like it was worth the money, especially considering I bought them when they were on sale. So whatever price I paid for them, it was heavily discounted compared to the full price of the game. Probably. I hate how Steam doesn't save how much money you paid for the game. But yeah, if I paid full price for any of these games, I would only be mildly disappointed, but I felt like I got my money's worth, is what I'm trying to say. And considering Dead Island, the entire Dead Island franchise is apparently 70% off of Steam, as of...
Oh, thank fuck.
You did it.
Thanks to you. The beat would have consumed me.
Oh, it ends in 16 hours from when you're recording this video.
You must have a fucking...
So, yeah,
I know we're Newman.
yeah, I heavily recommend getting it, now.
From long ago. Maybe the future too, I'm not sure. They started
Since it's 70% off,
the beat. The voices.
it's only $50 full price, though.
When the beat broke through, it let the Newman in too. But now they're both gone.
You could have told me what I am.
I'm sorry.
Oh, apparently they have, skin
What
packs
are you gonna do?
This is still a dangerous place. The
as
walls
well.
are thinner than ever, and the beat is pounding against them. I'll stay. If the beat threatens again, I'll be here to face it.
On your own?
I can't hear the Newman, but I can still feel them.
Yeah, I don't recommend the skins. They're only useful in
What
multiplayer.
will you do?
I'm
And considering multiplayer is down when I recorded, it's probably up now since it's 70% off now. But yeah, I heavily recommend you at least entertain buying this game at a discount. Not full price as of yet, because really it's one of those games that I can definitely see a lot of people trying 100% like I did, but really
You said the Newman talked to you?
just how
What did they say?
Something about
the first two games were
an orbit.
a little clunky and dated. Doesn't mean they're bad games, but
They stopped.
it sure does not want you to 100% them.
Like a dream.
This game, with how they designed it, technically
So how do you become a Newman?
zombies have the potential to infinitely spawn if you keep running around in a circle
Getting the feeling we're not all 100%
or staying in the same area for too long. It kind of adds this double-edged sword, if you will.
No. Well, don't make a habit of it.
You know, exploring each of these areas is really well done, well made. Hell, they even have a special type of side quest called Lost and Found, which you just need to go find random landmarks and each of the maps to try and locate the final prize. Gameplay-wise, they're all the same, but they're still interestingly engaging enough to actually be worth doing. It's just a few have random difficulty spikes that almost make them worthless, especially considering I had access to unique skinned, named skinned weapons at the hotel for some reason. I think it's one of the DLCs that I got since I bought the season pass version of the game whenever I did. But from my understanding, this game goes on sale a lot. Same thing with the first two games. And I only recommend it if you get it on sale at least a minimum of 40% off. And yeah, considering the current asking price is $50 instead of the usual 70 or 80, but it's a bit of an older game. As of recording, I think this game originally came out in 2002. The most recent one. Oh yeah, this game's 1 year old. Number two is, I do know the first two games in the franchise are ancient by comparison. But yeah, I had a really nice time playing in the games. I don't recommend back-to-back unless you have friends to play with, because after a while, especially the Dead Island 1 and Riptide, there are some parts of the game that kind of fuse or overlap with the other game when thinking back upon it. But that's probably because they use a lot of the same assets and models.
Check this out. One man and one
There are a lot of new models in Riptide, but they do copy and paste a lot of the assets too.
Spine-shakingly epic, the zombies' heads literally explode.
That's one way to say
But
the
this
word.
was my review slash theory video.
Okay?
I call this Retro Quasar. Hope you guys liked it.
Another new start.
And if I did it correct, there might be a podcast version out too.
I used on the Knights of the Sound Fable.
See you guys next time.
Fuck yeah.
Oh, by the way, the next video I plan on doing is Crime Scene Cleaner Simulator. See you guys next time. Bye-bye.